Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome, folks. Today, the Hungry Gamer is back with another game review, and today we're talking about Kingdoms of Valeria, designed by Levi Moat and published by Daily Magic Games, with art by the Miko. And I do apologize if I mispronounced any of those names. Now, what we are talking about here is Kingdoms of Valeria, which is one of the games in the Of Valeria series, which all take place in this medieval world of Valeria. And unless I'm mistaken, it's kind of this world created from the mind of the Miko, and he does all of the art, I believe. Now, in this particular game, you are managing your duchy in Valeria, trying to make sure it's ready to take on whatever the next game is going to throw at it. And to do that, you are playing a roll and write game, which is playable with multiple players, or it can also be played solo. Now, if you are not interested in how this game is played and just want to jump ahead to my final thoughts, then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk about how this game works. First thing that you do is you go through and you name your duchy. Obviously, this is Hungry Town. I have a town that's actually a duchy. And what's going to happen is each player is going to take a turn, and they are going to roll all of the dice. And what's important is all players will activate their sheets based on the black dice, which are rolled. They're called the harvest dice. While only the player that actually rolled the dice will then get to activate one of the colored dice. Now, just keep that in mind, because I'm just going to show you kind of a 1 or 2 rounds what would happen on any given turn. So the first thing that happens is you are going to activate these harvest dice, and I've changed the numbers just for the example here. And so those are going to activate based off of your citizens up here. And so then I look and I say, okay, I look at number 1. Do I have any of the pips, any of the bubbles filled in on number 1? Which is obviously relating to this die here. I do not. Do I have any on the 5? I do. I have 1 right here, 1 stoneworker. So since I have 1 pip filled in, I go down to the stoneworker and I fill in a pip. If I'd had 2 of these already filled in, I would actually fill in 2 bubbles. Then I add these 2 numbers together. That is 6, and I would get to fill in 1 here because I have that bubble already filled in, like so. Now, as you can guess, as you're filling things in, if you fill in a certain symbol, you get to take a bonus. Let's just say I had both of those filled in. That would mean my 6 would let me fill in 2 here. Then when I fill in the knight down here, I come to the wall, and I fill in a bubble there. Then every time I get a knight, I'd go up this track, and if I fill in one of these, that would allow me to fill in a thing on the monster down here, but I'll talk about that in just a minute. Then, as I said, all of the players will get to do this part. Then the player that rolled the dice will get to activate one of these. Now what's important here is the blue dice is a bonus. The active player can choose to add this number to any of these other dice. So for example, if I chose to use the 2, it can either be a 2 or it can be a 6. If I choose the yellow die, you get to fill in one of these pips up here. So let's pretend that I chose to use it as a 2. I could fill in that right there. Or I could use it as a 6, which I already filled that in, but let's say I hadn't. I could then fill in right here, and that would give me another spot on the wall, which would then give me something down here, and I'm going to talk about that later, so we'll just pretend that didn't actually happen. So for the sake of argument, I simply filled in a 2. That's how the yellow die works. How the red die works is the monsters down here. And as you can see, on each one of these, there is a number. And so I could take this 5 and fill in any space that falls within that range that the 5 falls into. So I could put it here in this 1 to 6, here in this 1 to 5 if I wanted. And then by filling that in, I would get another bonus. Or, again, I could add those together, and I could have 9 and fill it in right here. So we'll just say I were to do that. I filled in the one that has the gold. So I come back over here, I fill in a gold. And also, because I attacked a monster, you always get to fill in 1 gold for doing that. The other option are the green dice. And the green dice are these maps over here, and your starting positions are the ones that are already filled in. And so, with this 3, I could fill in 3 different spots. So we'll say I'm going to take the 3 and go 1, 2, 3, and I've gotten to this building, so then since I got there, I get to circle the building there, And now I have this ability, which means every time when I'm choosing a green die, I can put it up or down by 1. There's other positions like this here where you can flip the die over, etc., etc. Now what's important is I could not add both of them together and say 7 and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When you get to a building, you always have to stop. But later on, I could use that 7, say I'd gotten down here, I could take 7 and go all the way this way if I wanted. Additionally, you're going to be able to fill in spaces on these every time you fill in a green square, which you'll notice here where I had the option to fill in with the monsters, there's these green squares. There's also green squares here and all over. Every time you fill in a green square, you're going to get to fill in a single bubble that continues your path. And it's important to note, I can come to here, then I can start again from over here, etc., however I want to do that. Now, the last thing to point out is over here in the money track, there are these pillars. Every time you get to one of those pillars, you're going to get to pick one of these statues. And each player can only get 4, but what these are going to be is, for the most part, in-game scoring bonuses. For example, this one here, I get an extra point for each one of the buildings I'd gotten to. This one here, for every bridge I've filled in, there's little bridges on the map, I would get 2 points, and so on and so on. There's also ones like this that are just an instant and give you a bonus, but no points at the end of the game, so this one here would actually allow me to fill in 3 different citizens up here. And that's how the game works. The game's going to continue on around and around until one player has filled in completely 3 of these guild tracks. And then all players get equal turns, where they are the active player rolling the dice, and then at the end you're going to add up all your points. Your points are going to come from the different buildings that you have circled. They're going to come from the monsters that you have defeated. I should also point out that defeating a monster means you fill in an entire layer, and when you do that, the first person to do it gets the top value, while all successive players get the lower value. You're going to add that in. You're going to add in all the different stars that you filled in all over your board, and then you're going to add in whatever your in-game scoring conditions are as well. And so that's how this game works. So what do I like about this game? The first thing that I like is something that I do like the Miko's art for this game. I'm in general, I'm a fan of his art style, the kind of the caricature-y, cartoony, and something about this kind of world, this Valeria world, really kind of fits this art style. So I like the way that looks. I like the way the player boards, the mats, whatever you want to call them, the sheets, that's the word. I like the way that looks. I like the way the statues, all of that I do like. It's pleasant to look at when you stop to look at it. I don't find that I look at the sheets too much when I'm doing a roll and write game, but I do like the way that it looks. The next thing that I like about it is I do like kind of this world that's being built. I really am finding myself intrigued by this Valeria world. I actually want to know more about it. And as you will see, I actually have 3 of these Valeria games that I'm covering, this being the second one that I've covered, and having the previous one, Thrones, done the week before, and then sometime down the road off Siege. I'm intrigued by this world more and more the more that I dig into these games and the more that I play them. So I like that as well. But talking about the game itself, and I'm going to actually bring in what's probably my favorite roll and write, Hadrian's Wall, into the conversation here. And I do that because what Dice Kingdoms of Valeria does is it gives me that same vibe that I love in Hadrian's Wall, and that is the combos, or as I like to call it, the perpetual motion machine. You get that awesome feeling that you make a choice and then you combo this into this, and that lets you do this, and that lets you do this. And I really enjoy that, and I get that in spades in this game as well. However, what you're probably thinking is, well, then why would you ever pick this over Hadrian's Wall? And the answer is, this is more of a Hadrian's Wall light. There's not so much stuff going on. It's a quicker game. It's a simpler game. It's a lighter game. It's easier to teach people. You just got to throw it down, you play, and you get that feeling, that joy, that pleasure. Because let me tell you, you get it in this game. You're so much of what you're doing. You're constantly making these fun choices, and they're constantly hard choices that you're making of which one of the dice to actually use when it's your turn to do that. along with that, the other thing that I really like is I like how you have those dice, the harvest dice that you're constantly sharing in the game. I like that even though it's not your turn, you are still getting to take actions in some way. And I really appreciate that. I think that works really well. It means that you have to pay at least a little bit of attention on everybody's turn. You're not just doing your own thing. And I think that does work really well. The last thing I'll single out is something that I particularly enjoy. I like the way the statues work. I like that you are getting your own in-game conditions that you're trying to work towards, which will invariably make each different play a little bit different, and I think that works well as well. So what are my quibbles with the game? The first one relates to those statues. I wish there was more of them. There's a big old stack of them, and I was excited about that, but really they're just repeats. So if you're playing a large player count game, there's enough of them, then you aren't allowed to get the same one twice. And I just wish that there was more. I like this way the statues work, but I just wish that I had more of them. Minor quibble there. The next thing I'll say is, because in some ways this is a lighter version of one of the more complicated roll and writes, I do think after a while it's going to get a little bit samey. And to me that's okay, because I have the heavier roll and writes that I can then move on to and then kind of come back to this one. I want something quick, light, and easy. But it is a lighter one, and because it's a lighter roll and write, it doesn't have a ton of depth that's going to keep you coming back over and over and over and over and over again. Rather, this is the type of roll and write I think that you're going to bust out, you're going to play, you're going to enjoy. You'll put it away, and then you'll break it back out when you want more of a filler roll and write. It's not a anchor your game day around, whereas you can kind of anchor an evening play session around like a Hadrian's Wall or a Twilight Inscription. This is not that. This is closer to a filler. And then the final thing I say, which is really kind of a critique of roll and writes in general, there's not really any interaction in this. You might take a statue before someone else gets it. You might kill a monster before someone else does. But there's not a ton of interaction. Again, that's kind of a criticism of roll and writes in general. So if you're looking for a highly interactive roll and write, this is not going to be it. Though the kind of race to kill the monsters is interesting to me. But really, that's it, folks. This is a roll and write that is actually going to stay on my shelf. I wasn't sure if it was, because there are others that I like so much. I really, really enjoy Hadrian's Wall a lot. I like, and my wife likes Twilight Inscription quite a bit. Guild of Merchant Explorers is not a roll and write, but basically it's a roll and write. I like that one as well. Dungeon Page is completely different, but I enjoy that too. And I thought, well, this is going to be an also ran for me at first, but no, it's not. This one's staying on my shelf. I enjoy it. I'm going to work through the deck probably. I'm going to need to laminate some of the sheets. And so all in all, this one is a winner for me. It's best. So I think if you're someone that likes roll and writes and you like Hadrian's Wall, that style of play, and you like that combo perpetual motion machine, then this is one that you should check out, because it does that, but in a smaller time frame. It's not as much, it's not as heavy, it's easier to get into, and I really do enjoy it. So there you have it, folks. That is Dice Kingdoms of Valeria. As always, if I've made any mistakes in the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with the timestamp so I can get that into the Klingon subtitles. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.